Apocalypse+Space+hoarding+waste disposal+farming+breeding+Sanguanzheng, the blizzard lasted for 10 days, and the temperature plummeted to over -50°C. This is not the worst. The next extreme weather, such as pestis, extreme heat, drought, acid rain, tornado, etc., will come one after another, and each one will be hell on earth. Looking forward to her rebirth in the 7 days leading up to all of this, when her space was not lost and her husband was still alive, she was frantically hoarding supplies. Food, clothing, housing, transportation, medicine, weapons, water, electricity, and all necessary daily necessities must be stocked up for the next life. What? Has their friend who stabbed them in the back of their past life also been reborn? Also hoarding more supplies from a warehouse than they do. Without further ado, it's a direct source of income. After the arrival of the apocalypse, their couple started a 0 yuan purchase. In this lifetime, there is revenge and resentment. Those who have hurt them will definitely be rewarded twice. Keywords of the novel. Blizzard coming. Opening the end of the world 0 purchase no pop-ups, blizzard coming. Opening the end of the world 0 purchase TXT complete collection download, blizzard coming. Opening the end of the world 0 purchase latest chapter reading. Chapter 1. Rebirth. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1 Rebirth. With her hopeful hands tightly gripping the blanket and beads of sweat covering her forehead, she suddenly opened her eyes and sat up. Her eyes went from blurry to clear, and her heart went from calm to shock. Isn't this the bedroom of her new house before the apocalypse? She quickly looked at the bedside, and the electronic clock showed 8:46 a.m. on September 16, 2028. The strong wind outside the window was whistling, and there were occasional sounds of something colliding. She jumped out of bed and opened the curtains to look out. Although there was a strong wind outside, the streets were still bustling with cars and horses. Feeling confused, didn't she die in the apocalypse of cannibalism? How did this come back? Returning to the first 7 days of the apocalypse. At this moment, the ringing of her phone interrupted her thoughts. She had not used her phone for over 3 years and suddenly felt a bit unfamiliar. She quickly walked to the bedside and picked up the phone on the bedside table, which showed her husband calling. Seeing the words, husband, tears of anticipation streamed down her face. In the 3rd year of the apocalypse, this man died in front of her in order to help her block the knife. She stabbed a dagger into her heart and followed her husband Lu Ruisheng. It's not that she didn't cherish the opportunity her husband gave her to fight for a living, but rather that she was already surrounded by enemies at the time, and it was better to come here happily than to die under someone else's knife. And her husband was her only hope for life in the afterlife. When her husband died, she also lost the meaning of living. She trembled as she pressed the answer button, and a familiar concern came from the other side. Pan, the meteorological station reports that there will be super strong cold currents and strong winds these days. Don't go out today and order takeout for lunch. I signed the contract with the client today, and I estimate I will be able to go home in the evening. I ordered some meat and vegetables, you can keep them later, and I will cook delicious food for you when I go back. Looking at the sound that made her feel real, she choked up and called out, husband, I miss you. Lu Ruisheng smiled indulgently and said, I miss you too. I'll try my best to wait for you at home as soon as possible. At this moment, her mind is still in chaos. She needs to calm down and think for a moment. It is impossible to tell her husband that the end of the world is coming soon and that she will be reborn, because normal people either think she is joking or worry about her mental health. If her husband is worried about her, he should go back immediately. This weather is even more dangerous. The memory of my past life is that my husband's contract today was in a nearby county town, not far away, and he will come back smoothly in the evening. Although the weather is bad, there are no dangers on the way, so she doesn't want to make any extra noise about this matter. She quickly said, Ruisheng, the weather is not good, you need to pay attention to your safety. I know, you can rest assured. Take care of yourself and have your wife kiss you. Gu Pan also smiled and told Lu Ruisheng about her husband's kiss, which was their habit of dating for 5 years. After hanging up the phone and sitting quietly in front of the dressing table, she suddenly noticed that the pendant around her neck was given to her by her grandmother before her death. Her parents passed away early, and it was her grandmother who pulled her up. She has been wearing this pendant since childhood. Just in the second month of the apocalypse, the pendant was stolen by his friend Zhuang Jie, who came to their house for help and borrowed it, and then their family disappeared. Before dying, she looked at the last bit of consciousness and unexpectedly saw Zhuang Jie and his wife. When she heard them talk about the pendant space, she learned that there was a secret to the pendant space, and this time they were attacked. It was actually arranged by Zhuang Jie. In his past life, Zhuang Jie used this space to live a prosperous life with his wife and children in the afterlife, but he didn't trust the original owner of the pendant to be alive, so he killed them. Now everything has started over, and he will never let those who harm him live better. She took off the pendant, trying to find the mechanism, but flipped around without any clues. In a moment of anxiety, her hand was scraped out of blood, and blood droplets merged into the pendant. Suddenly, she entered a strange space. There is nothing in this space, it is empty, but it is very large, even larger than a football field, surrounded by a fog-like chaos. There is an electronic panel suspended in the middle of the space, with space instructions written on it. 1. Once the pendant is damaged, it cannot be inherited and will disappear completely with the current owner. The initial usage time of space 2 is 3 hours, and injecting gold can extend the usage time. The space has a preservation function, and the owner can control the items in the space with their mind. Seeing this, she seemed to understand Zhuang Jie's concerns in his past life. Zhuang Jie wanted to pass on the pendant to future generations, so it couldn't be destroyed. However, she was worried about being discovered by the Hope, so she designed to kill them to prevent future troubles. Standing in space, looking forward to fully accepting one's own rebirth and the fact of having space. Suddenly, a rapid knocking on the door rang out, and Doomsday Vision developed an extremely sharp and cautious personality. She left the space and looked out through the cat's eye at the door. Seeing this person, she instinctively went to the kitchen to get a kitchen knife, but as she walked towards the door, she suddenly realized that something was wrong. This is not the end of the world yet, and there are laws that prohibit killing people casually. And killing him is not the greatest revenge, but watching him suffer with his wife and children in the afterlife, making him feel the pain he and his husband suffered in the past life, is the greatest punishment for him. Soon, Zhuang Jie's voice came from outside. "Sister-in-law, are you at home? Open the door, I have something to do with you." Lu Ruisheng is an orphan who, through his own little accumulation, acquired his current business and assets. That's why he got married at 30. Zhuang Jie, who is younger than him, used the startup funds provided by his parents to start a decoration company with Lu Ruisheng. Therefore, he is called Lu Ruisheng, Brother Lu, and Sister Gu Pan. Looking forward to stabilizing one's emotions as much as possible. I just woke up and it's not convenient for you to come in. What's up with you? It's definitely not easy for Zhuang Jie to suddenly come to his door in such weather. Outside, Zhuang Jie said, "Sister-in-law, it's like this. My wife often says your pendant looks good. She's celebrating her birthday next month, and I want to borrow your pendant to find a place to customize a similar style, which can be considered a surprise for him." Pendant. What did Gu Pan suddenly realize? Has he also been reborn? Otherwise, I wouldn't have been so anxious and suddenly came to borrow this thing so clearly. She refused directly and said, "That's my grandmother's relic, it's not convenient to lend it out." Zhuang Jie didn't expect the usually talkative Gu Pan to refuse so much, and continued, "Sister-in-law, I just want to take a look. Otherwise, if you open the door, I'll just take 2 photos. It is impossible to open the door at this time, as it can easily lead to conflicts." If you enter the bureau, you will not be able to use the 7 days before the end of the world to hoard supplies. But she also saw that Zhuang Jie was determined to win. Even if he didn't agree today, if he came back with his husband Lu Ruisheng that night, he would have caused even more trouble for himself. After thinking for a moment, she came up with a solution and said to Zhuang Jie outside the door, "Let's not be indecisive either. Did Lu Ruisheng let you come? He just doesn't believe me like this. He believes there is a man in my family. He even asked you to come and deceive me. I can't live these days anymore. Don't pretend, I won't open the door." End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Enmities and Resentments in Previous Lives. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Enmity and Resentment in Previous Lives. Zhuang Jimeng outside the door. What? Do they still have this matter? But my purpose is not to interfere with their trivial matters. The pendant, I just want to get it and be reborn. His first thing is to get it as soon as possible so that he can live better in the afterlife. He patted the door anxiously and said, "Sister-in-law, it's nothing to do with Brother Lu. I really borrowed the pendant. Your lies are too false. In the jewelry store now, there are no styles available. How can I look good with this worthless pendant? You just came in to see if there were any men." After speaking, Gu Pan deliberately kicked down a stool with a bang, as if there was still someone moving at home. At this moment, Zhuang Jie could only think of Gu Pan's infidelity. There was also a man inside, and it seemed that he couldn't get in today. He really didn't expect Gu Pan to be so angry while watching Wenwen quietly. He said, "Sister-in-law, I won't tell Brother Lu about your situation, but I really hope you can lend me the pendant. Looking forward and other things are not important to him, it's almost the end of the world. Regardless of what they do, it's mainly about space. If he gets space 1 day earlier, his advantage in the end of the world will be even greater. Alright, there's still the pendant. Don't make it up. What do you want? Tell Lu Ruisheng that I won't open the door for you even if I die, and make him doubt it. Anyway, my divorce from Lu Ruisheng won't be good for your company either." Gu Pan just redirected the topic elsewhere. Zhuang Jie is also anxious now, because there are still 7 days until the end of the world, and he has to hoard supplies in advance. Even if there is space, the more supplies there are, the more secure they are. The first 2 months of the past and end of the world were very difficult for them. So he didn't dare to waste too much time and thought of going back to stock up on supplies first. When he got the pendant, he just put it in the space. Anyway, this pendant will eventually be his own. So Zhuang Jie said to the inside, "Sister-in-law, I promise I won't tell Brother Lu about your matter. Then I'll go back first and treat you to dinner another day." Upon hearing Zhuang Jie leave, she leaned against the door and thought about what to do. She needed to buy supplies now, but due to Zhuang Jie's situation, she couldn't go out rashly. Although her strength was good in the last 3 years, she was afraid of being ambushed. The attraction of the space is too great. If Zhuang Jie hires someone to grab it, there is still danger for herself. After all, he is aware of the use of the space and knows that the initial permission for the space is only 3 hours, so she is uncertain about the safety situation and there is no need for her to take risks. She decided to lock the door and plan for the next 7 days at home. Doing things in a planned manner can save time. It would be safer to go out with Lu Ruisheng when he comes back. His husband is a retired Special Forces soldier, who can fight against 10 enemies. Otherwise, they wouldn't have lived for 3 years in the end of the world. She first wrote a shopping list with a pen and paper, and at this point, she couldn't buy like a headless fly. She had to spend the money on the cutting edge. You should know that she lived for more than 3 years in her past life, and she knows best what she will lack in the future. A blizzard is about to arrive, accompanied by a rapid cooling, not a drop of 10.20 degrees, but a sudden drop from -10 degrees to -50 degrees. 2 disasters hit together, causing the entire city to be completely frozen in. Although the blizzard stopped 10 days later, the temperature had already dropped to -60°, reaching the limit of human survival. Soon, electricity could not be supplied, and many people could not be heated and would freeze to death. A few months later, the weather suddenly warmed up and turned warm overnight. Because many people threw garbage from upstairs when it was extremely cold, after freezing, rats swarmed, causing the pestis. After the pestis, it suddenly turned to extremely hot weather, followed by drought, acid rain, tornadoes, polar days and nights and other natural disasters. Clothing, food, housing, and transportation are essential elements for survival, and she started writing from clothing. Ordinary sportswear, thin and thick throughout the year, must be bought more because it is most practical in the apocalypse. Because it's going to be extremely cold soon, I need to buy a down jacket like the one from the Antarctic exploration team, which is the warmest. Of course, there will also be different environments in the future, so raincoats, assault jackets, thermal underwear, sun-resistant clothing, scarves, socks, hats, gloves, and so on cannot be omitted. There are also biochemical suits, isolation suits, and bulletproof vests that she wants to buy, but she may not be able to buy them. She needs to wait for Lu Ruisheng to come back and ask him. He has served in the military and knows more about these things. There should be both clothes and shoes, including casual shoes, snow boots, rain shoes, and shoes suitable for different weather conditions. Next comes food, not only rice, flour, and oil, but also various seasonings, as well as gas cylinders, pots, pans, and ladles. It's impossible to buy only one type of rice, as well as noodles and oil, so she plans to go to the farmer's wholesale market with her husband to buy these. When she arrives at the place, she can have a more comprehensive look and buy them. In addition to these, there are also fruits, vegetables, meat, and eggs. Finally, we need to make some instant noodles, self-heating pots, and compressed biscuits, which will be hard currency in the apocalypse. Of course, the most important thing is water. Although there is snow and extremely cold weather and it can turn into water, it is not clean and drinking it continuously is not good for the body. Then when the extreme heat arrives and the snow melts, there will be a shortage of water, and many people will die of thirst at that time, so water must be sufficient. The necessary items for living, such as bedding, tents, and sleeping bags, are essential, but living in a place for a long time also requires daily necessities. Firstly, sanitary napkins and tissues are really important for a woman. Secondly, toiletries, shampoo, shower gel, toothpaste, toothbrushes, laundry detergent, and so on cannot be omitted. While maintaining life, we still need to ensure the quality of life. The 3 years in our past life are really terrifying. Not washing our hair for a month is the norm, and we don't know how often we can wash our clothes. I can't even look back on those days now. Of course, the place to live should also be heated and cool, so in addition to electricity, coal, wood, and stoves, some should also be prepared for emergencies. In terms of transportation, the first thing to do is to have a car and gasoline, followed by a boat. It's not realistic to have a large one, but how many kayaks can be used, and there are also hot air balloons. If the ground is in a comprehensive crisis, floating up is not an option. Modern times are different from ancient times, so electronic devices cannot be lacking. Even if there is no internet in the future, mobile phones, computers, and tablets can still be used for entertainment. There are also household appliances such as televisions, air conditioners, and washing machines that need to be purchased. If you use electronic products, you need electricity, so the generator cannot be missing. The extreme survival items, such as outdoor rescue bags, tents, climbing ropes, emergency lights, etc., were discussed by Lu Ruisheng when he returned. He was more professional and had weapons, so he had to ask his husband to find a more secure way. Finally, there is medicine. Without medicine, a cold in the apocalypse could have killed a person. So she wrote at the end of the schedule that 1 or 2 days before the apocalypse, they would go to the pharmacy to stock up on medicine, because the apocalypse would follow and no one would investigate these things. These are all temporary thoughts. If you go out to stock up on supplies these days, you will also see or remember some important things. Just buy them together when the time comes. Looking forward to not placing an order online, as the weather is becoming increasingly strange, traffic will gradually become congested in the next few days. Airplanes and ships have mostly stopped, and highways will also be closed. Even if there are some local warehouses, they may not be complete. It's better to go buy directly and get things directly to feel more at ease. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Apocalyptic Plan. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3 Apocalyptic Plan. Buying so many things requires a lot of money, and besides buying a house, they only have over 200,000 left over these years. Nowadays, houses are not very important because in the end of the world, all economic systems are destroyed. Therefore, mortgage loans are the quickest way she can get money now. Selling a house takes too long to go through the procedures, so it's better to mortgage. In the previous life, they had spent extreme cold, pestis and extreme heat on this flat floor. Later, they had a national base. They went to the base, so at least they could live in this place first and buy goods with the mortgage money, but it did not affect their continued living. Perfect. I also have an old house left by my grandmother, which is a bungalow with a large yard and can be mortgaged out. They are a provincial capital city in the north, and the housing prices are not as high as those in Beijing, Shanghai, and Guangzhou. However, when these two houses are combined, they can still be mortgaged for 2 to 3 million yuan, which is almost enough to store supplies. When there is chaos outside, they can also go to shopping malls and other places to search for things that others cannot take, but they can take them themselves. After thinking about all these things, she finally thought of trying the space again and controlling it with her mind. She looked at the coffee table in front of the sofa, thinking with her mind to put it in the space, and sure enough, it went in. She put in the refrigerator and TV again, everything went smoothly, and then when she thought about taking them out, they all came out again. And she put the apple, she took a bite into the space, took it out after a while, and there were no signs of oxidation. Does that prove that she can even buy some dishes to put inside, such as grilled fish, hot pot grilled meat, etc., and when she wants to eat them, she can always taste the taste before the end of the world? At noon, she didn't order any food and cooked some noodles herself. After finishing, she put the rest in the space and continued to write down what she could think of, what to buy, and what to make. Their marital relationship is simple. After their grandmother passed away, they didn't have many relatives anymore. Lu Ruisheng is an orphan, which is also a big reason why they got together, because they are all alone, even during the Chinese New Year. It has been 6 years since I started my business with Lu Ruisheng. They only got married 2 months ago, so I haven't considered having a child yet. This is also quite good. If I get pregnant and have a child, it will be a near death in the end. Now, I need to start preparing contraception and family planning supplies. Thinking of this, she quickly wrote it down. What came to her mind now must be written down, otherwise she would forget in the blink of an eye that in the end world, there may be a lack of vitality. The dishes ordered by Lu Ruisheng in the afternoon have also arrived. Gu Pan did not go out directly to receive them, but had someone leave them at the door to ensure their safety before she brought them in. In the evening, Gu Pan wrote a full 10 pages of paper. The sound of a password lock came from outside the door, and as she rushed to the door, she quickly opened the door and threw herself into her husband's arms. Ruisheng, I miss you so much. With a height of 185 and years of exercise, Lu Ruisheng picked up his gaze with one hand. His originally resolute and handsome face also wore a smile. You think of me like this after a day without seeing me? Then I have to meet my wife's requirements. As he said, he was about to go to the bedroom. Looking back at this, she realized that her husband had a wrong idea. He didn't have time to do this now. She quickly said, "No, Ruisheng, I have something particularly important to tell you." Lu Ruisheng looked at his wife's sincere tone and knew something was going on. He picked her up and put her down on the sofa, saying, "I have everything." Looking forward to listening to her husband's continued tolerance and indulgence towards her, I feel really warm in my heart. This is also the reason why she can endure any hardship in the end of the world. She knows what it means to waste time in the rebirth of the apocalypse now. It's better to intuitively let her husband see space first and then explain, and he can't help but believe it. She pulled her husband up and entered the space with her mind. In the space, Lu Ruisheng was blindfolded and said, "What is this place?" Gu Pan said, "Space, the space left by my grandmother's pendant strap." After saying that, she also moved the sofa and coffee table in the living room with her mind. Lu Ruisheng went from surprise to full belief. Is this true? Well, and this is just one of the secrets I have to tell you. Let's go out and talk about it. Currently, we can only have 3 hours of space per day. Gu Pan took Lu Ruisheng out and also moved the sofa out. Sitting on the sofa, he talked to Lu Ruisheng about the apocalypse, rebirth, and Zhuangjie, and then placed the pendant on the table. "I'm not sure who uses it yet, but it can make our apocalyptic life more comfortable," he said. She trusts her husband very much. In her previous life, her husband died for her. In this world, even if she doesn't believe in herself, she won't doubt Lu Ruisheng. Also, she doesn't like secrets between husband and wife, so their way of getting along these years is like this: everything is faced together and solved together. Lu Ruisheng held the pendant and said, "Let's put it on you. My martial arts skills are good, and I have stronger self-protection ability. When encountering danger, if you hide in space, I can still face the enemy with more peace of mind. This is the best choice for us. As for this pendant, I suggest destroying it. There is no need to keep it for future generations. It is so dangerous to have children in the afterlife, and I won't let you take any risks. Even if we return to normal life in the future, we have children and grandchildren have their own blessings. No one is more important than you." Gu Pan acknowledges that Lu Ruisheng's words make sense, because if she can protect herself well, her husband will be more relaxed. Anyway, the two are together, and if he is not there, she will not live alone. There was also the presence of the pendant, which indeed carried danger all along, so she nodded and said, "Okay, listen to you." Lu Ruisheng directly picked up the nut clip on the tea table, broke the jade pendant, and then took a small bottle and handed it to Gu Pan, saying, "Take a moment to remember." Gu Pan received the small bottle into the space, which was the first item in her space. Then, Gu Pan pushed the 10 pages he had written in front of Lu Ruisheng and said, "All I can think of for now, take a look and add some. Then we have to start hoarding supplies. 7 days is too tight." After taking a look, Lu Ruisheng said, "I'll find a friend to get my weapons and outdoor escape supplies. I can't get a loan at this time, and the farmer's market is also closed. Let's go to the mall first and buy the electronic products." Gu Pan nodded and said, "Okay, let's go now." She had already changed her clothes and was waiting for Lu Ruisheng to come back. Lu Ruisheng said, "Let's go to a car rental company while we're out and rent a small truck. It's convenient for us to drive the truck out to buy things tomorrow." Gu Pan also feels that this is good, as it can prevent Zhuangjie from discovering. After buying something, he will find a deserted place to receive space and then go buy it again. Both of them wore an extra windbreaker, hat, mask, and sunglasses before leaving the door together. At the door, Lu Ruisheng looked at the wall and door and said, "Tomorrow, go get some steel bars and iron doors. When the end of the world comes, we need to reinforce these. Well, it will be extremely cold and hot, and the windows will also need to be treated. Let's measure the size of the windows when we come back. I'll call the dealers who make doors and windows and ask them to urgently order 1-way bulletproof glass and replace it as soon as possible. Don't worry about these concerns, my husband is responsible for decoration, so he can handle them all well. During the conversation, the two of them got off the elevator. Their community is considered one of the better in the city. There are more than 20 buildings in the community, and their building is in the second row along the street, which is an 11-story small high-rise. They live on the 7th floor, 701. Even if the elevator stops in the future, walking is not that difficult. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Starting to hoard supplies. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Starting to hoard supplies. The wind outside was still very strong and the weather was colder than usual, but fortunately it was an underground parking lot, so when it didn't feel too cold, they got on the car. The two of them went to rent a car first, gave the address, and arranged to deliver it to their community outside tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock. Afterwards, the two of them went to the mall and first went to several restaurants they liked to eat. Each restaurant ordered hundreds of meals to be packed, and they agreed to come and pick them up tomorrow afternoon. At noon, they looked at the noodles placed in the space, but when they entered just now, it was still hot, proving that the insurance in this space was more miraculous than she had imagined. Then the two of them went to the electronic product layer again, buying 10 phones, tablets, and laptops. No matter how many they had, they couldn't actually use them. After they went back, they could download different materials from each one, such as planting, breeding, infrastructure, etc. After all, in the future, they couldn't use any skills in the apocalypse. Of course, they also had to download some entertainment, otherwise the loneliness of the apocalypse would be quite difficult. After buying these, they went to sell household appliances again. They also bought 2 usable appliances, which were actually enough. They arranged to deliver them to Grandma Gu's old house tomorrow afternoon at 5 o'clock. I originally wanted to go see something else, but today the mall closed early due to the weather. As the staff were discussing earlier, the temperature outside has dropped again. Gu Pan and Lu Ruisheng can only bring these things home. When I got into the car, I looked around and put my things in space. Although I could fit them in the car, there was no safe space. Lu Ruisheng said that they received a batch of shelves returned from the shopping mall a while ago, which happened to fit in the space. This way, the items were also neatly stored. They were in one of their old warehouses, so they could pick them up tomorrow. Coincidentally, there were steel bars and iron doors in the warehouse over there, so they happened to pick them up together. At the doorstep, Zhuang Jia approached with a face full of desire. "Brother Lu, sister in law, you have come back. I have been waiting here for more than an hour, it's too cold." His already small eyes were shining brightly, occasionally scrutinizing his neck. At this moment, with her husband by her side and her heart relaxed, she said to Zhuang Jia, "What exactly do you mean? Do you insist on getting us divorced?" Zhuang Jia quickly waved his hand and said, "No, sister in law. I'm not here for those things, I just want to borrow your pendant." Lu Ruisheng knew how to deceive Zhuang Jia today, so he also cooperated with his wife and asked Zhuang Jia, "You said it wasn't for those things. For what? Do you know something about your sister in law?" Zhuang Jia is really going to be furious at this moment. Why are they so many troublemakers? At this time in my previous life, due to the bad weather, I worked from home these days and hardly met, so I really don't know what happened. At this moment, he could only say, "It's okay, brother Lu. It's really okay. It's just that my wife likes her sister in law pendant. I want to borrow it and customize it. Can you help me talk to my sister in law and do a favor to my brother?" Lu Ruisheng had already clenched his fist under his sleeve, but he knew that violence was not allowed now and that he could not enter the bureau. So he also changed the topic as he looked around and said, "It's okay. Who are you lying to? Don't think I don't know, I really didn't expect me to treat you like a brother. Are you going to watch your brother wear a green hat?" Gu Pan pretended to be even angrier as he opened the door and said, "Don't you suspect there's someone outside of me? Let's get divorced. don't go home either." With a bang, he kicked the door shut. Lu Ruisheng was even more angry and said to Zhuang Jie, "I'm making you laugh. I have to deal with my family's shame." After speaking, he followed suit and opened the door, closing it. As they pretended to start smashing things, the two of them pretended to argue. What else can Zhuang Jie do in this situation? "I can't get in at all. I can only think that at the latest, I will get space at the same time as in my previous life. Now, let's go hoard supplies and leave dejected." After listening to Zhuang Jie's departure, Gu Pan and Lu Ruisheng looked at each other and smiled. They didn't directly tell Zhuang Jie that the pendant was broken because they still had to use Zhuang Jie. At this time, Zhuang Jie would definitely prepare supplies. When they got the pendant and filled the space, why didn't they wait for Zhuang Jie to be ready? They took Zhuang Jie's lair. If Zhuang Jie didn't think about the reserves, it might actually be a good thing for them. Quiet down, Lu Ruisheng called his friend and ordered a batch of extreme survival materials, including rubber boats, fire and earthquake emergency kits, tents, fire-resistant clothing, isolation suits, radiation-resistant clothing, explosion-proof clothing, etc. He will go and get them in 3 days. He has channels for this, so there is no need to ask. As for the weapons, Lu Ruisheng has also found channels, and all he can obtain are some daggers, machetes, and firearms that he cannot obtain temporarily. After all, our country is still very peaceful, but he can actually obtain bulletproof vests. But Lu Ruisheng is not an ordinary soldier, so he came up with an idea to buy some parts and then assemble his own shotgun and the like. Afterwards, he asked a few friends and found a place where they could mortgage the loan as soon as possible. They wanted to get the money immediately, and the bank needed several working days. They couldn't wait, even if the mortgage was a little less, it was best to get the money immediately. After all, we are in business and there is no shortage of such opportunities. We quickly got in touch and agreed to meet tomorrow morning to discuss. Everyone was busy, it was almost 12 o'clock, and the two of them remembered that they hadn't eaten yet. They simply cooked some frozen dumplings, but at this point, they really didn't have the energy to make anything delicious. Then they lay down and continued to study the next thing, not knowing when they would both fall asleep. The next morning, both of them got up, had breakfast, were well armed, took everything they needed, and left before 7 o'clock. Today is colder than yesterday, and there are fewer people on the road. Starting today, both kindergarten and primary school have closed classes. After leaving the community, I called the person from the car rental company, went to pick up the car, and then drove a small truck to the mortgage company recommended by a friend. This mortgage company is really big, because a friend introduced it, which also indicated that the money was urgently needed, so the negotiations were quite fast. After confirming the authenticity of the house certificate, we started negotiating the price. Originally, these could be mortgaged around 3 million yuan by going to the bank, but we can only talk to them about 2.2 million yuan, but we can get the money immediately. Gu Pan and Lu Ruisheng didn't hesitate and just settled on it, which was 2.2 million yuan. As long as the money was received immediately, it would be fine. The other party was also proficient in the process, signed the contract directly, deducted the property cost, and paid them 2.2 million yuan, and the transaction was completed. As for the fact that the business license of the unit was not used as collateral for the loan, on the one hand, it was not possible to mortgage too much money, and on the other hand, it was not cost-effective for Zhuang Jie to hoard materials with the money mortgaged. Gu Pan and Lu Ruisheng didn't stop for a moment and drove their small truck directly to the clothing wholesale city. What they didn't lack the most was clothes, shoes, hats, luggage, and bags. The suburbs were full of such factories, which were also industries supported by their local government. After arriving at the market, start shopping from scratch and don't look at any brands. These are useless in the apocalypse, as long as they are of good quality, durable, sturdy and comfortable. I buy the most sportswear because it is the most practical in the apocalypse. Then, from the inside out, I buy underwear, autumn clothes and pants, warm autumn clothes and pants, down jackets, down vests, raincoats, socks, gloves, hats and scarves, each of which is enough to wear for 30 years according to the situation. They plan to go to the outdoor product store in the mall and buy a few good ones, such as assault suits and sun protection suits. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Continuing to hoard supplies. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Continuing to hoard supplies. Send these things to the small truck, and they go buy shoes, snow boots, rain boots, sports shoes, slippers, and so on. As long as they see what they can use, they don't leave behind any of them. There are also bedding here, so we solved it together. We bought more than 10 beds and more than 10 pairs of pillows for down jackets, cotton quilts, and various thicknesses. And there are folding beds here, and I have also bought a few. I have also made a few mattresses, and in the future, I may need to change the house several times. Even if it is old, it will still need to be replaced with new ones over time to ensure the quality of sleep. After buying these, she packed them and noticed that the blankets took up a bit of space. She pretended to tidy up on the truck while putting some things in the space. Soon, the space in the car became larger again. Afterwards, I bought a lot of fabric because whether it's for clothes or curtains, it's okay to buy more. If I buy a sewing machine these days, I can do anything by myself. After finishing it, they went directly to the nearby small commodity wholesale city. All she saw were boxes of toiletries purchased. In addition to toilet paper and sanitary napkins, she also bought some daily necessities such as a thermos, kettle, lighter, and hot water bag. Warm Baby heard that it doesn't work when the temperature is too low, so they didn't buy it. Rubber hot water bags are the most reliable. I bought 100 emergency windproof lights because they will be the most commonly used and consume a lot in the future, so I bought more. Candles are basically red candles used for weddings. After buying 2 boxes, these things will also be essential in the future. Alcohol stoves, alcohol lamps, and other items need to be purchased more. When eating outdoors and with outsiders, these items are necessary and cannot be taken out directly from the space. Another thing is various types of rodent medicine, cockroach medicine, ant medicine, etc., because after natural disasters, there will be many insects, which may be life-saving. Of course, there must also be disinfectant, but they plan to go to the pharmacy to buy it, which is more guaranteed than this. Afterwards, she followed the market and went out to buy dingshi, such as barbecue ovens, hot pot, grilled fish plates, pots and pans. Anyway, she bought whatever she could see and needed, even carpet mats. I really saw sewing machines here and bought 5. In the future, this thing may become the best thing to pass the time, with a high wear rate. I need to buy more. Anyway, when she bought some, she got in the car and pretended to tidy up, then put some things in the space. Others didn't know how much they had bought, so naturally they wouldn't pay attention to how much they had, let alone the tarpaulin covering the car. I came out of the wholesale market for small commodities in the afternoon. I bought a lot of things and counted a lot of them. I needed them to go to the warehouse to pick them up, and also counted and loaded them onto the truck, which was also very time-consuming. They decided to buy these today first because they have to go to the warehouse to pick up shelves in the afternoon, go to the old house to receive the appliances they bought yesterday, and finally go to pick up the meals they ordered yesterday. Therefore, the food and car matters will be postponed until tomorrow. They casually found a restaurant on the roadside, had some food, and then went to the warehouse, which happened to be in the suburbs. After picking up the shelves, they went to the bungalow to collect the ordered goods without wasting time. When we arrived at the warehouse, there were no workers, and this was just a place to pile up their miscellaneous items. After entering, Lu Ruisheng said, "These shelves have all been opened and collected. You can put them all in the space first, and then go to the nearby hardware store to buy some screws, wires, and tools. I will install them when the apocalypse is over." Gu Pan also thought it was good. "Okay, I'll go to the nearby building materials store later and buy some cement and sand. Can't you prepare for what you need to build on your own someday? Lu Ruisheng nodded and said, it's really true. We also need to buy more things from hardware stores. In the future, many things may have to be done and repaired by ourselves. As they spoke, the two of them had already put everything that needed to be placed in the space, including some decent-looking iron frames and steel plates, as well as a few iron doors. Lu Ruisheng suggested that they could be installed in the stairwell with an extra layer of protection. Anyway, if there is a place, they should keep it for now and throw it away if they can't put it down in the future, which is better than not having it when they want it. Coming out of the warehouse, I went directly to the nearby hardware store and bought a bunch of tools, screws, and wires. Then I went to the building materials store and bought some cement, sand, putty powder and other things. However, I also found a new world here. The floor leather is really a good thing. After I went to the base in a previous life, the cement on all sides of the house would be really warm if there were floor leather. There are also foam bottom plates, which are cool and heat insulated. These things that used to be considered unfashionable are suddenly very useful. After buying the goods, I received a call to deliver home appliances. They went to the bungalow and opened the door. The masters moved everything in. The weather was not good today, so I gave some tips to the masters and told them that the weather was abnormal recently, so I asked them to prepare some supplies. That's all I can say. The masters tried the household appliances well, so they said goodbye. After everyone left, Gupan took in all the things he bought today. Seeing it getting dark, they went to yesterday's mall, picked up the meals ordered by each house, and when they arrived in the car, they all placed them in the space. Then I went to the food street again and booked all the shops here. I paid the deposit and came to pick it up tomorrow. When I got home, it was already over 9 o'clock. I don't know if Shuang Jie didn't come today, or if there was no one at home and they left again. Anyway, I didn't see him, so I remained calm. Entering the door, the two of them entered the space together, sorted and placed things roughly, and then came out to take a shower. After taking a shower, both of them felt that they should buy a water tank to store water. It hasn't been many days, and even if they receive water every day, the amount they can receive is still uncertain. So the first thing tomorrow is to buy a water tank and also wholesale mineral water, which is the most important thing. The two of them were planning for tomorrow, writing and staying up until midnight. The next day, the two of them went directly to the place where they bought water tanks, bought 10 large water tanks that were 2 meters by 2 meters, and still delivered them to the bungalow in the evening. Afterwards, I went to the wholesale water place and ordered 1,000 barrels of mineral water and 1,000 boxes of bottled mineral water, all of which were sent to the bungalow in the evening. The solution to the water problem is to go to the farmer's market, find a grain and oil store, buy rice, millet, and various coarse grains in 100 bags, and then use the same 100 bags for various types of noodles and 30 barrels for different types of oil. I bought 10 boxes of noodles because they will be a good item for exchanging supplies with people in the future. These may not be enough to eat for a lifetime, but they are not just eating these, they also have the ordered meals, and the base will also engage in planting in the future, so these are enough. Then go to the nearby seasoning wholesale, starting from 10 boxes of oil, salt, soy sauce, and vinegar. The dry ingredients are all the same, and they cost dozens of pounds. White sugar and salt are the most commonly purchased, with 5 tons directly purchased, equivalent to 10,000 pounds, because in the future, iodized salt and sugar will be hard currency and can be exchanged for many goods. I also bought 500 pounds of brown sugar and rock sugar, which are also valuable items. They couldn't afford to take these cars, so they arranged to deliver them to the old house in the suburbs in the afternoon. Fortunately, no one knew about that house because it was a cherished memory and not something that needed to be shared with outsiders. Only the couple knew about it and regularly went to tidy it up. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Comrades in Arms. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6 Comrades in arms. Then we went to the dry goods area, which was also essential. Various types of dried mushrooms, fungus, seaweed vermicelli, as well as dried shrimp, dried baiting, and dried seafood, not only could satisfy hunger, but also supplement various nutrients. After buying these, they went to the fresh produce area to buy various types of meat, such as pigs, cows, sheep, chickens, ducks, and fish. They started hoarding them from scratch, all weighing up to 300 pounds. They said it was a rural wedding banquet, so the vendors were also happy and gathered together to gather these things for them. There are also slices of lamb and beef, and various types of meatballs cannot be omitted. In the future, eating hot pot will be a must-have. Eggs are the most indispensable. There are 2,000 chicken, duck, and goose eggs, and 10 boxes of quail eggs. She is not sure if there is enough space to hold fertilized eggs for hatching, so she also wants 100. If it cannot be hatched, she can eat it without wasting it. Afterwards, I went directly to the wholesale market for fruits and vegetables. I had fried chicken and fast food at the entrance of the market, and also ordered some. I said I would come and pick them up in 3 hours, and then I entered the wholesale market. You don't have to look at the variety of fruits and vegetables. You have to buy everything, and now you don't care which one you want more or which one you want less. On average, you like each type, just buy more cheap ones and less expensive ones. It's very humane and scientific. All of these were bought out and it was already 3:50 p.m. They quickly went to get the fried chicken and then went back to the bungalow to pick up the goods. After arriving there for a while, the delivery arrived. There were not many people living in the old houses here, and many of them were waiting for relocation. People went to the city to buy houses to live in. After all, water, electricity, and heating are not as convenient as in the city, so not many people paid attention to them. Everything was moved to the yard, and after paying, the masters also left. Before leaving, I hoped that the two of them still gave these people red envelopes and reminders. Afterwards, she hopes to allocate these income spaces with her mind, so she directly codes the rice, flour, oil and other things without taking up space. As soon as she had collected these, the water delivery arrived and the process was still the same. However, when the mineral water came into the space, the water tank was directly connected to the old house, and both faucets were turned on. Before the end of the world, how could the water tank be filled? In order to prevent the water from overflowing, Lu Ruisheng installed a safety valve, which would automatically close when it was full. After all, after working in the decoration industry for so many years, I still understand all of this. Once everything is done, it will be dark again. They went to the food street for a meal, then went to a nearby shopping mall and went directly to an outdoor goods store. They bought a few of the coldest down jackets and the best quality assault jackets. Sunscreen shirts are also good, they are all life-saving and naturally better. Unlike ordinary clothes, good quality is enough. I bought all of these and it's past 10 when I go home. They leave early and return late every day, and even if Shuang Jie comes, they may not be able to find them. In the evening, Lu Ruisheng received a call from a friend saying that all the supplies for extreme survival were ready. Coincidentally, he had a new batch of equipment from a client, so he ordered them all and asked him to go to the Extreme Club tomorrow morning to pick them up. The two of them felt that tomorrow was very tight, so they planned to depart earlier. They first went to several breakfast shops in Baoyuan, then went to friends to get equipment, and then went to buy gasoline. As long as they had time, they needed to buy more gasoline in the next few days. In the apocalypse, gasoline was not something that even money could buy. In the afternoon, they planned to go to a second-hand car dealership and sell their current sedan. They then bought a second-hand Hummer and a modified off-road vehicle. But in the end, the two suddenly realized what to buy. Just rent it out. In the apocalypse, you don't have to pay it back. Spending money is not brainless anymore. Arrange it, the two of them lie down. It's even colder tonight, so turn on the air conditioning and electric blanket. The next day when they woke up, the two of them set off directly and met Zhuang Jia at the door. They told Zhuang Jia directly that they were going to divorce, but it didn't waste time. Zhuang Jia didn't dare to waste time, so he quickly went to hoard supplies. He also sold his property, rented a warehouse, and bought things that were essential for the end of the world. Of course, he didn't know that all the supplies he hoarded were for Gu Pan and Lu Ruisheng to make wedding clothes. They arrived at the breakfast shop they often went to first, but there weren't many people because the weather was even colder. The two of them entered the store and directly bought all the breakfast, saying they would pick it up in an hour because they also need to pack it. Afterwards, they went to a farther place and packed another breakfast shop, covering all the breakfasts of 3 breakfast shops. I went to the pharmacy in the middle of the time and bought a lot of commonly used medicines. Because there are still 4 days before the end of the world, I cannot aggressively buy too many at once, otherwise the pharmacy has connections with the police system, which may cause trouble. But they said they would go on a nationwide self-driving tour and bring more medication for safety, which is not a doubt. They also bought some isolation suits, not much, and the pharmacy won't ask too much. Having picked up breakfast, it looked like it was placed behind the truck, but in fact, there was already enough space there. Afterwards, the two of them went to Lu Ruisheng's friend's Extreme Survival Club. This friend Guo Gang was Lu Ruisheng's former comrade in arms and had a good relationship. Although he didn't hang out often, he just spoke up when there was something. Guo Gang had helped them in the apocalypse, and this concern would never be forgotten. She and her husband also talked about this matter. The two of them discussed and agreed that the day before the apocalypse, they would call a flash to send him some instant noodles and self-heating meals. When they arrived, Guo Gang welcomed them out and greeted them. After a few pleasantries, I entered the room. Guo Gang has an advantage. He doesn't like to ask people about personal matters, so he didn't inquire about why Lu Ruisheng bought these things. He just took them to the storage area and introduced them to what they had. Tent, earthquake and fire emergency kit, rescue light, climbing rope, telescope, oxygen mask, small generator, engineer shovel, fire protection suit. Each one is 5 pieces, enough to use. In addition to these, Guo Gang also gave them a big surprise. Biochemical protective suits and bulletproof vests, which are not something ordinary people can get, and Lu Ruisheng won't ask too much. After paying the money, Gu Pan reminded Guo Gang, Guo Gu, I have a friend at the Meteorological Bureau. Through the grapevine, the weather may become even worse and last for a long time. Therefore, you should prepare some necessary daily necessities in the next few days to avoid transportation difficulties and panic buying in the supermarket. Guo Gang nodded and said, there's really something wrong with this day. You should also be careful on the way. Lu Ruisheng replied, Brother Guo, please contact me by phone if you need anything. Because the weather is getting darker and the wind is still strong today, it's even colder, and they still have a lot of things to do, so they didn't stay much and said goodbye. After walking out for a while, Gu Pan took these income spaces and the two of them headed to the place selling generators. It's better to buy them in advance and rest assured. On the way, the two of them also studied how gold can increase the time to enter space, so they planned to wait until the end of the world and go to the gold shop to sweep around as soon as possible. When we arrived at the place where the generators were sold, we directly selected suitable ones and bought 10 units. They said they were for outdoor operations, and we also bought all the diesel together. The delivery address was still the old house. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Final preparation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Final preparation. Today neither of them went to the restaurant to eat, so they bought some and ate in the car to save time. After finishing, they went straight to buy gasoline. Buy some at a gas station, put them in the space after buying, and then buy again. The two of them changed their clothes a few times midway and even bought a wig yesterday. Just for the purpose of using it at this time, they changed their hairstyles and went to buy it without any suspicion. I bought 100 barrels of gasoline and put them all into the space. Busy until evening, the two of them went to the place where they rented a car. As it was just for rent, they naturally wanted to rent it well. I directly rented a 9-story new Hummer and an off-road vehicle, saying I want to travel freely. The small truck was rented out directly, with each person and one car driving out. They first went to the old house to send and receive electric motors and diesel, and then came out to sweep the goods. This time it's a supermarket. There are many types of supermarkets, and the ones that are missing may come to mind when you see them. They directly contacted the manager of the supermarket and said that the unit team building, a 7-day tour to the island, and snacks for 200 people. The manager was naturally happy and took them directly to the warehouse. The two of them didn't have much discussion at all. They bought it for 30,000 yuan, but of course, they still bought 10 boxes of anti-scarves in this regard, fearing that they might have an allergic reaction if they bought them at the small department store. Then I wrapped up the supermarket's self-heating pot and instant noodles. Passing by a place of wine, I thought of the 4 words, tobacco, alcohol, sugar, and tea, in my longing heart. Although this is not a must-have in the apocalypse, it is indeed a spiritual thing. Even before her death, she had seen someone hoping for a cigarette. So I bought all of these directly at the supermarket. All bought, the manager said it would be delivered tomorrow, and Lu Ruisheng directly gave the manager a 500 yuan red envelope, which turned into immediate delivery. The address naturally remained at the old house. After everything was settled, Gu Pan and Lu Ruisheng followed them to the old house, signed for it, and then put everything into the space. The two of them were also shocked and they entered the space. They didn't expect so many things. Of course, they only spent 200,000 yuan on the money in their hands, and most of the money for mortgage on the house was spent. But they don't panic at all. These things can't be exchanged for 20 billion in the apocalypse. When there were 3 days left in the apocalypse, their house had changed windows, bulletproof and still mirrored, and the kind inside was not visible from the outside. Their curtains were originally very good and had excellent light-blocking effects, so there was no need to replace them. Then he bought car parts again. After all, there was no place to repair cars in the afterlife. Lu Ruisheng knew some of them himself, so he just prepared more parts. However, he still felt it was not safe, so he decided to rent 2 more Hummers. There is also water from the old house's water tank placed in the space, and then replaced with a new water tank to receive water. These days, I come every night to change the water tank. In the first 2 days of the apocalypse, they also stocked up on medicine and anonymously sent some instant noodles and self-heating rice to their close friends and customers. Gu Pan alone gave her hair, Xiao Tianjinjin, and Dong Mingyue essential items for girls and a month's worth of survival supplies. Lu Ruisheng also flashed supplies and first aid kits that could last for a month to Guogang, as they have elderly people at home. Today, Lu Ruisheng also received accessories that could assemble weapons, and his heart became more secure. The day before the end of the world, they drove out again in the morning and bought seeds with the remaining money, because if they lived into a new era, cultivation was the most important thing, and seeds could not be bought by money. On the way back, they looked around at the doors of several major shopping malls in the city, and when the chaos started, they could buy for 0 yuan. Afterwards, I went to the old house and collected the remaining water tanks into the space. 10 water tanks have been filled up in the past few days. In the afternoon, they didn't go home. Instead, they went to the entrance of Zhuangjie's residential area. Tomorrow is the end of the world. Today, Zhuangjie will definitely go to confirm the contents of the warehouse again because there was a sudden blizzard for 10 days, during which people cannot go out at all. Therefore, following Zhuangjie today is the easiest way for them to find the location of the warehouse. Watching Zhuangjie drive out, Lu Ruisheng followed suit. The newly rented car was also disguised by both of them, so Zhuangjie wouldn't even recognize them. Lu Ruisheng comes from a special forces background, so tracking these things is a small trick for him. They quickly followed to the north of the city, where there were factories. He chose this place very well. Zhuang Jie parked and entered a furniture factory. After a while, he came out. After that, he got in the car and ran to look at their house. But Gu Pan and Lu Ruisheng didn't know, and of course didn't care about it either. They saw Zhuang Jie leave and got off the car to go to that warehouse. Surprisingly, there is still an electronic lock on the big iron door. Lu Ruisheng asked Gu Pan to take out the climbing rope from the space, fix it on one side to the chimney of the warehouse, and then climb up and enter the warehouse through the skylight. After entering, he confirmed that there was no surveillance, so he opened the iron door from inside and excitedly pulled Gu Pan in, saying, "Pan, Zhuang Jie really bought more than us. It seems that their family has a solid foundation." Glancing at him, his eyes lit up and he said, "Let all his dreams come to nothing in this life." He quickly put everything into the space. When the two of them entered the space again, they found that the current thing was more than half full of space. When the end of the world first arrives, one can still go out and buy many things, which is equivalent to 0 yuan. When they arrived home, Zhuang Jie anxiously turned around at the door and said, "Brother Lu, sister.in.law, you've come back. Let me come in and drink some water quickly. I'm so thirsty." He didn't know that his home had been stolen, and he still wanted to go inside and find another chance to get the pendant. If he could get the pendant today, those supplies would be earned before the end of the world, and many things would be of better quality. If the end of the world came, many things would not be new. Lu Ruisheng frowned and said, "Let's go downstairs and talk. Your sister.in.law is crazy." Gu Pan glared at Lu Ruisheng with a deep expression of bitterness and hatred, and then entered the room and slammed the door shut. Zhuang Jie's past life was more than a month after the end of the world, when he came to seek refuge with Lu Ruisheng due to his low floor and cold weather. At that time, Lu Ruisheng and Gu Pan had a good relationship. Could it be that after the end of the world, they supported each other regardless of past grievances? This is only one explanation. But he didn't have much to say to Lu Ruisheng, and he didn't want to waste time. Suddenly, he had an idea in his heart, whether it was the same fate as this pendant in his previous life, or 2 months from the end of the world. It's getting colder outside now, and he's also worried about the elderly and children at home, so Zhuang Jie sighed and said, "Brother Lu, don't get too angry too much. I just can't rest assured to come and see you. You're really okay with your sister.in.law. Don't argue anymore. I don't have much to worry about, just feel relieved when I see you. Then I'll go back. I'll see you off, let's go downstairs and find a restaurant to have a drink," said Lu Ruisheng with great skill. Zhuang Jie quickly waved his hand and said, "No, Brother Lu, I'm going back late, and my wife will also get angry." Then he ran away. Seeing Zhuang Jie leave, Lu Ruisheng opened the door and entered the room, hugging the eavesdropping gaze at the door and laughing, "Did I perform well?" Gu Pan also smiled and kissed his face, saying, "I never expected you to be so skilled in acting." When she was looking forward to Zhuang Jie's rebirth, she thought that this life would see their family suffer a painful death. However, knowing that Zhuang Jie had also been reborn, her thoughts changed. She discussed with her husband and decided to solve Zhuang Jie and his wife together when the end of the world lost order, in order to avoid any future troubles. The two of them were in a particularly good mood today because the supplies had doubled, and although there were overlapping items prepared on both sides, there were also things they did not prepare, which was simply adding to the beauty. At this moment, someone knocked on the door, and both of them increased their vigilance. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. The End of the World Comes. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. The End of the World Comes. Lu Ruisheng glanced at the cat's eye and saw Chen Xiaonan, the owner of 702 opposite the building. This building has 2 households on one elevator, and opposite the door is a married couple, both teachers. They have a boy aged 15 or 16. Because Lu Ruisheng and Gu Pan used to rent a house and only moved in after getting married, they were not very familiar with each other, so even if they knew each other. These past few days, I have mentioned to him that after the end of the world, the opposite door did not leave the house, and the power and internet were cut off for not long. Their family of 3 went out and never returned. It is unclear whether they had an accident searching for food or went somewhere, so they disappeared like this. Lu Ruisheng opened the door and called out to the other person, Teacher Chen. Chen Xiaonan is not very tall, wearing glasses. He said to Lu Ruisheng, when I went to the supermarket after work, many people were already rushing to buy. I'm worried that you've just got married and there isn't much food in your house. I want to remind you that if you don't have much to eat at home, while you can still go out now, hurry up and buy some. In the past life, Gu Pan and Lu Ruisheng were worried about the construction site. At this time, they were still outside, so it seems that they may have been opposite in the past life, but there was no one at home, so they don't know. The other party's words made Lu Ruisheng very grateful. Seeing that it was not too late, Lu Ruisheng said to Chen Xiaonan, we often come back late, so our family has a lot of food reserves. However, Teacher Chen, the weather forecast just now said there will be heavy snow tomorrow, and if it snows in September, it is estimated that the price of grain will increase soon. Otherwise, we should be prepared and go buy some more grain. He felt that the other party could remind them, and they should also remind the other party, and this excuse should be used to go out together and stock up on more food. In the future, he and Gu Pan's food supply will be sufficient, and they will also appear to be renaming themselves in a proper manner. Chen Xiaonan thought for a moment and said, you're right. The weather looks flustered. If there's more rice at home and we're at ease, then I'll go home and tell my wife to let's go. Okay, then I'll wear a coat, said Lu Ruisheng as he walked back into the room. Looking around and hearing it, she also agreed with Lu Ruisheng's approach and said to him, you can go out later and buy more things. Our neighbors don't lack food, and we are more at ease. Both of them understood this, and Lu Ruisheng agreed. He put on his clothes, armed himself, and went out with the car key. Gu Pan cooked dinner at home and waited for Lu Ruisheng to come back. 3 hours later, listening to the voice of Lu Ruisheng in the hallway, she opened the door. I saw that the two of them had moved a lot of things, and Chen's wife Duan Shumi and child Chen Lang also came out. They greeted each other and quickly moved their belongings into the house, because they had bought a lot and had to settle down well in the house. Before closing the door, Gu Pan reminded them that a sudden drop in temperature may cause the water pipe to burst, so reserve some water in advance to be on the safe side. After returning to the house, Lu Ruisheng placed these things and said, many cautious people have gone out to hoard supplies. We both went to small shops in the suburbs and bought these things for 3 times the price. This time, we are at ease. Wash your hands and eat. I made your favorite braised eggplant and winter melon soup with ribs. Gu Pan said. The two of them sat at the dinner table, eating their last meal before the end of the world. Tomorrow will be another era. After finishing their meal, the two of them went downstairs and put their cars in the space. After returning home, they sat on the sofa together, reading various messages on their phones. Various video websites on Chiba forums provide forecasts about extreme weather, with a variety of comments and bullet comments. Some people say it's a natural phenomenon of nature. When it snows during this season, it melts all day and there won't be any major events. Some people also say that the end of the world is coming, but most people say that he is alarmist, walking for 500,000 or something. Of course, many people have started discussing hoarding supplies. Some say that her grandmother has hoarded a whole house of food, afraid that she won't be able to leave in the next few days. Some people also say that they don't stock up on anything at home. Anyway, a certain group gives away everything, and the sky-high price is good. They don't need this little money, and these days they only order food for 3 times the delivery fee. Looking at these comments is also a sigh, because such a network will not last too long. When they lay down at night, the room became very cold, but they didn't turn on the air conditioning because it stopped heating in extremely cold environments, so the two of them took out the electric heater directly. There should be no problem with triple heating of hot water bag, electric mattress, and electric heater. At night, the two of them hugged each other for warmth. They looked forward to telling Lu Ruisheng about their past lives and didn't sleep until the second half of the night. The next morning, the two of them woke up at dawn. Even with electric heating and electric blankets, they felt very cold. They ran to the window, which was gray and couldn't be seen far outside. The wind was swirling with snow, and it was raining heavily. They changed the windows and the sound insulation was good, making it relatively quiet, but looking at the scene outside, it seemed like they could hear the howling of the strong wind. The end of the world has arrived. The hopeful voice trembled slightly, because after experiencing it once, there were too many painful memories. Lu Ruisheng hugged her tightly from behind and said, "We will pass this life safely, and I will always be by your side." Glancing around, he hugged Lu Ruisheng tightly and said, "Actually, I am very grateful to God. You have been with me in my past and present lives." Lu Ruisheng kissed the glancing head and said, "I'm the same." While speaking, Lu Ruisheng's phone rang. It was Guo Gang. Lu Ruisheng answered the phone and said, "Ruisheng, are both of you husband and wife okay?" Lu Ruisheng said, "We're doing pretty well. How are you doing?" "Our family is also doing well. By the way, thank you very much for the instant noodles and self-heating rice you sent me yesterday. I bought some in advance, and with you, I piled up half the room. Now I'm staying at home feeling at ease. I just happened to catch up, and I don't have many friends either. Just us comrades in arms are the only two of us in Yangcheng. I can't even give you anything without it. Alright, I don't understand you yet. I won't be polite to you. Please help me and thank my younger siblings. Well, you also take care of your family. I heard that the weather will last for a long time, so you need to arrange your family's resources reasonably." "Got it, don't worry, let's call if there's anything we need," Guo Gang said. Telephone contact. After hanging up the phone, Lu Ruisheng saw a lot of news about this blizzard popping up in the mobile phone industry. The country's advice is not to go out before the blizzard stops. The country is studying and discussing countermeasures to reassure everyone and will definitely restore their lives as soon as possible. Gu Pan also watched these messages from Lu Ruisheng's side. In half a month, the internet will be down, and then the order will be completely chaotic. The two of them were talking while putting on thick pajamas over their warm shirts before leaving the bedroom and sitting down on the sofa. Because the living room also had electric heating turned on last night, it did not freeze, but it was only limited to not reaching below zero. They are from the north, with insulation on the exterior walls, and each home has various thick clothes. There are also many electric mattresses and heated tatami mats, so it is relatively better. However, online compatriots from the south are even more complaining. Gu Pan opened her WeChat account, and the messages in each group were 99+. Previously, she had opened messages to avoid disturbance, but now she has let them go, and the sound of the messages keeps ringing. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. The First Day of the Apocalypse. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. The first day of the apocalypse. There aren't many groups to look forward to, including high school and college student groups, as well as a homeowner group. She and Lu Ruisheng are usually busy with business and don't have much time for water groups. Now there's only time left. The university group is diverse and there is not much useful information, but it can be known that the world is in a disaster, and the buildings in the south are not very cold resistant, so the disaster situation there is even more severe. I heard from classmates in the south that many families have died. Of course, in the future when extremely hot weather comes, the death toll in the north will be higher than in the south, and this expectation is clearer. However, what she knows cannot be said, so she just looked at it without following the discussion. The high school group was originally local, so I had a more detailed understanding of the entire city. However, I didn't expect this disaster to be so severe, and there were very few people hoarding supplies. Now everyone is pinning their hopes on the government, thinking that even if they can't leave, the government will still deliver food, so they are not so panicked. I remember that after the blizzard ended in my past life, the country did use helicopters to drop food, but only once. She looked and talked to Lu Ruisheng about these past life events, and then she opened up the owner group of this building, which was also very lively. Some people are grateful that they have hoarded a lot of things and even shared photos. Some people think that the government will manage it anyway, and they won't miss out on food. Hoarding things is the most foolish thing. Lu Ruisheng looked at the person who was drying things and said to him, "Was this house the first to be robbed?" Gu Pan smiled and said, "Your insight is too strong. Indeed, even if it's not the first one, it's still the first batch to be robbed. So it's beneficial to be low-key when doing things. Our anti-theft iron doors should also be installed later, so as not to make people feel like we know something in advance." I think so too. Now let's try to minimize our existence as much as possible. During the conversation, the owner of WeChat Group 301, who was looking forward to, at everyone. The water pipe has frozen and stopped flowing. Do you all have water storage? 402 homeowners response. We have a lot of flowers at home, so we have a habit of preparing water all year round. Fortunately, it can be used for 2 days. It is estimated that the cold wave will pass by then, and water will come. 901 homeowners response. Our family has been drinking purified water and mineral water, so we also have water to drink, but now it has frozen. 501 homeowner replied, "I'm an older person and I like to save some water. Unlike young people who live without rules." 802 homeowner at 901 homeowner. "Hey buddy, sell me a few bottles of mineral water. I don't have any at home, I can't even make noodles." The owner of 901 readily replied, "What else are we selling? It's not worth much money, it's all from our neighbors. We'll go upstairs and get 2 bottles later." The 802 owner thanked the 901 owner. At this point, the 501 homeowner, who was the person who mentioned earlier that young people don't hoard water, sent a message in the group. "My grandson is young, and I'm afraid the water I've been hoarding for a few days may not be clean." The 901 homeowner also gave me 2 bottles of mineral water. She didn't know how to at people in the group, so she said that directly, but no one answered because she had just shown herself to be very wise and she wasn't short of water. Now she's asking for water from others and pretending to be invisible. Anyway, she wouldn't let someone alone, so 901 didn't take over either. This group suddenly cooled down. Gu Pan smiled and said to Lu Ruisheng, "This old lady 501 is just a troublemaker, and the building director likes to engage in moral kidnapping. In her past life, she has been a demon, but in her past life, we also had no resources. This time, we need to guard against them." Lu Ruisheng said, "Anyway, we just don't speak up or show our heads. Well, the last thing we can do in the apocalypse is to be the Virgin Mary." After Gu Pan said that, he took out a portion of soybean milk, a portion of bean curd jelly served with sauce, and 2 deep-fried dough sticks from the space. "Eat your breakfast." The two turned on the TV, watching the news and having breakfast. The current news is still very positive, saying that the cold wave will not last long, so everyone doesn't have to worry. Gu Pan sighed and said, "Just like in a previous life." Lu Ruisheng said, "If it weren't for you, I would also feel that the disaster would pass soon." Just after finishing his meal, Zhuang Jia called and answered, constantly caring about them, but without any other emotions. Gu Pan and Lu Ruisheng confirmed that the other party still didn't know that the warehouse had been emptied by them. He was just laying the groundwork for grabbing the pendant in the future. "So there's no need to waste time," Lu Ruisheng said. He hung up the phone if there was something to do. The reason for maintaining contact is that they also need to determine Zhuang Jie's whereabouts, so that he doesn't have to move to another place during this period and spend time searching for revenge. In the past life, Zhuang Jia and his wife snatched space and wanted to kill someone. This time, they must watch Zhuang Jia and his wife beg but refuse, and die without closing their eyes. Lu Ruixing just hung up the phone over there, and the phone she was looking for also rang. It was her friend Tianjinjin who called. I don't have many friends to look forward to. Tianjinjin and Dong Mingyue are both old neighbors. The three of them have been in the same elementary school since childhood, and then went to the same middle school. They only separated in high school, but they still play together during holidays. This is also the closest person I have been looking forward to besides my grandmother in recent years. In the past life, after communication was cut off, they couldn't be contacted and never saw each other again. In this life, I hope to help her within my abilities. But she won't reveal anything about Rebirth and the Apocalypse, let alone space. After all, in the Apocalypse, human nature cannot help but be tested. You should know how many relatives in the later stages of the Apocalypse fight over a single bite. Reborn and returning, apart from her husband, Gu Pan cannot completely trust anyone. She will only do her best to help Tianjinjin and Dong Mingyue in an undisclosed situation. She answered the phone, and Tianjinjin's voice across from her was quite happy. Did you Flash send me something yesterday? This expectation really couldn't be denied. Of course, she also came up with a good idea and said, my client at the Meteorological Bureau said that this weather may last for a long time, and the news is all about stabilizing people's hearts, so let's stock up on more things. This is just hearsay. Just in case, I went to stock up on some things and brought you a copy. Tianjinjin happily kissed the phone several times and said, baby, you're really great. You know what? I've been working overtime until midnight lately, so I don't have time to go shopping. I've been at work for 3 meals a day. Fortunately, you bought these things for me. Otherwise, I would have gone hungry today. She doesn't live at home now. She bought a small apartment and paid off the loan herself, with the goal of not getting married or having children and living a carefree life. Gu Pan smiled and said, you save some food. My client from the Meteorological Bureau said it was quite scary, saying that this snow may fall for a long time. If you can't leave the house for a long time, don't panic if you have food. By the way, don't lend food to others like a bad person. You live as a girl and try not to be noticed as much as possible, it's safer. Tianjinjin replied, I understand. I'll be careful. I almost froze to death this morning when I woke up. At this moment, I'm going to envy you. Someone's warming up the bed. I envy myself too. Okay, feed me dog food all morning, I'll go eat my bread instead. Go ahead, give me a call if you have anything to do. Okay. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Lively WeChat groups. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Lively WeChat groups. After hanging up the phone, Gu Pan called Dong Mingyue to inquire about her situation. Dong Mingyue answered the phone happily and said, Pan, do you know? Today, our homeowner group is all fried, and many families have no grain reserves or water to drink. You gave me these, and my family has become a millionaire in our building. My mother-in-law even asked me to thank you. Dong Mingyue has been married for 2 years and has been preparing for pregnancy, but she hasn't been pregnant yet. Recently, her in-laws have also come over to discuss getting an IVF. Because the cost is not low, her in-laws have a big opinion of her. She hasn't been doing well lately, which is another reason why she is looking forward to calling him. Upon hearing Dong Mingyue's happy tone, Gu Pan stopped worrying about her and said, that's good. By the way, Mingyue, I have a friend from the Meteorological Bureau who said that this kind of weather may last for a long time. You have a lot of family members, so you should save some supplies. Dong Mingyue said, got it, my mother-in-law called me. I'll go over first and chat when I have time. Hanging up the phone and looking at Lu Ruixing with a smile, he said, don't worry, the two of us never worry about urging marriage and giving birth. Lu Ruixian also smiled and said, indeed, I haven't even thought about those complicated things. I just want to be with you. The most important thing for the two of them now is time, so after talking for a while, they also talked about the duration of space. 3 hours a day is really too short. Isn't it said on the use panel that gold can extend it? So the two of them searched for the gold jewelry at home and took a pair of gold bracelets from their wedding into the space to try and see if time would change. The two of them entered the space, and the golden bracelet in their hands disappeared instantly. The 3 hours on the space display screen became 3 hours and 58 seconds. That 2 seconds were just consumed, which proves that this pair of bracelets has only been extended by 1 minute. Bracelets weigh 50 grams each, so calculating 100 grams of gold only adds 1 minute. If it takes 60 minutes per hour, it would cost 6,000 grams of gold. Isn't that too expensive? Lu Ruixian looked at her hopeful expression and rubbed her head, saying, it's already great to have space. We can't demand too much, and in the end, with so many resources, we're afraid we won't be able to exchange for gold. Glancing for a moment, he nodded and said, yes, in a few months, grain will be more expensive than gold. Didn't we observe the location of the mall before? After we can go out, we'll go to the Jinjian store first. Well, so it doesn't seem difficult to fill the day up. It's okay today, let's tidy up the space and put those shelves on for clearer placement of things. Okay, I was just about to tidy up. Zhuang Jie's boxes haven't all been opened yet, maybe there's a surprise. Then open the box today. Because it's only 3 hours and 1 minute, there isn't much that can be done. The two were in a good mood at this time. They opened Zhuang Jie's box, which was like an open blind box. There were really surprises in the contents, such as medicines. In addition to common medicines, there were even medicines for treating senile diseases, diabetes, heart disease, and cancer. Anyway, the medicines were really too complete to look forward to their drugstores. Zhuang Jie, many of these are prescription drugs, as well as some surgical instruments and even dialysis machines. Many of these drugs use thermostats. It seems that he has more experience in this matter than Gu Pan and Lu Ruixian. After all, their family had an elderly person and children in their past lives, and the drugs that Gu Pan and Lu Ruixian can use are those commonly used. In addition to these, there are also many children's toys, which are not within the scope of consideration for Gu Pan and Lu Ruixian. However, at this time, Gu Pan finds it quite interesting. Nowadays, children's toys are really high-end. Then they found a lot of milk powder, baby milk powder at different times, and the two of them looked at each other. Are they still planning to have 2 or 3 children in the apocalypse? But is that too much? How many children can finish eating? But it could also be for sale, after all, these are in short supply and will be valuable in the future. The two of them opened the blind box for 3 hours and gained a lot of surprises. Not to mention anything else, Zhuang Jie really had a lot of money. He bought so many imported fruits that he didn't even want to buy more durian and mangosteen. Here are more than 10 boxes. When leaving the space, Gu Pan also brought out a durian. The snow outside is getting heavier and heavier, and the sky is terrifying. The street lights are always on, and there is no one or a car on the road. After coming out, I finally remembered that I had forgotten to take out the crochet yarn, sewing machine, and fabric from the space. In this way, these things are the best way to pass the time. But when I came out and saw the TV on, both of them had something to do. Let's watch TV, the news is all about the cold wave. At least for today, everyone still thinks that this is an abnormal cold wave, which will pass soon. Most of the hosts didn't go to the TV station for this weather, it was all reported online. After watching the news for a while, the two of them switched to live streaming because in more than 10 days, the internet will be gone, and these are all memories. Because they can still cook openly now, the two of them had hot pot for lunch without even washing vegetables. Previously, they ordered 3 hot pot restaurants, each with 100 or 300 portions, which was definitely enough to eat. After having lunch, the two of them took a nap, but were later awakened by WeChat group messages. The two of them looked at the messages on WeChat and basically borrowed food and water from each other, which was quite harmonious. Their community is also considered good in this city, so most of the people living there have high quality. If there is anything in the group that everyone doesn't want to hear, they just ignore it and rarely argue. At night, the snow didn't stop, but instead grew bigger, and the information in the group became active again. The timid say they are afraid, while the bold say they will take a nap and wake up tomorrow morning. The snow may have melted and it will be 996 again. That night, Gu Pan and Lu Ruisheng embraced each other and slept, but didn't do anything. After all, the end of the world has just arrived, and they know what will happen in the future, so their hearts are even heavier. The next morning, the two of them were still woken up by WeChat, hoping that there was no message in the WeChat group to avoid disturbance. They were also worried about missing some important information, after all, starting over again. In case of the butterfly effect, some things would change. WeChat groups are still the place with the most information, there's no harm in keeping them. They all know that because they can't leave, many inconveniences in life come out. Yesterday's first day, everyone thought they could just endure it, but the next day will be even more difficult. She picked up her phone and looked at the homeowner group with Lu Ruisheng. At this moment, 2 residents on the first floor are complaining in the group that their bathroom is blocked and asking everyone upstairs not to use the bathroom. But there are also those who complain, saying they can't get out now, not in the restroom, where is it? Fortunately, the manager of Building 401 spoke up in a timely manner. Everyone understands that we are one building and also one home. As the saying goes, it is better to be near neighbors than distant relatives. Difficulties are temporary, so we can use plastic bags first. 501 homeowner living with this grandson. Now our garbage is piled up at the door and can't be thrown out. If we still use garbage bags when going to the bathroom, then if one night it suddenly warms up, the door won't become a cesspit anymore. End of this chapter.